Добре дошли на първата за тази година среща на VMware User групата в България. Първо, преди да продължим по същество, длъжен съм да предупредя, че събитието се записва. В този смисъл, ако някой има претенции срещу това, нека да ги каже, разбира ще се съобразим. В противен случай ще оставим записа да върви. Това ще ни даде възможност да разполагаме в последствие с информацията, която днес ще бъде споделена. Някой нещо против? Никой нищо не казва, така че продължаваме нататък. Добре, първите няколко минутки са за мен, да ви представя групата, да представя себе си и след това, разбира се, нашите лектори и минаваме по същество. Как ще протече днешната среща? 2-3 минутки представяне на групата и след това минаваме по темите, заради които сме се събрали, а именно Kubernetes Explained. Тук наш лектор ще бъде Орлин Vassilev от VMware. След това ще продължим с VMware Tanzu. Всъщност какво е това, какво и кога и как да го използваме, какво да очакваме от него. Тук наш лектор ще бъде Младен Krivokuca, също от VMware. Така че ще получим информация от кухнята при всички положения. И разбира се, след това ще се ориентираме към приключване. Нямаме отделна позиция за въпроси и отговори, тъй като считаме, че е по-добре въпросите и отговорите от една страна да се трупат в чата и съответно всеки от лекторите в края на своята част, нали, да им отговори, вместо да правим отделен панел с въпроси и отговори. Така, няколко думи за групата. Групата е сравнително стара, 10 годишна, 2011 в края е основана, първата среща се случва в началото на 2012. Целта на тая група е да обменяме опит и познания относно VMware продуктите и не само. На практика VMware и екосистемата около VMware, в този смисъл партньорски решения, които имат интеграция, разбира се, с VMware продуктите, всичко това е предмет на дискусии и съответно демонстрации в групата. Целта на нашата група е да имаме поне 4 срещи годишно, а защо не и повече? Това, разбира се, зависи и от вас, не само от нас. Към момента групата има така лидерския състав, да кажем, от двама лидери. Владимир Тодоров, IT Infrastructure Team Lead в А1 и моя милост Димитър Захарев. Аз съм, да кажем, най-общо консултант. Няма да изпадаме в някакви детайли. Тоест, ако имате желания, въпроси, препоръки, бихте могли да ни намерите и съответно да ни ги споделите. Ние, разбира се, с радост ще откликнем на тях, стига да бъде възможно. В този смисъл бих искал да ви приканя към това да утилизирате, да се възползвате от каналите за комуникация, които имаме. Основният ни канал би следвало да бъде VMUG Communities. В случай, че нямате все още регистрация там, моля, направете си такава, тъй като следващите събития ще обявяваме през VMUG Communities основно. Това не е целта. Искаме да съберем в крайна сметка нещата. Освен това имаме Facebook страничка. Там също правим обявления и публикуваме някакви новини от VMware света. Така че в случай, че не сте я последвали, може да го направите. И два ангажимента други от ваша страна. Моля, попълнете обратна връзка. Аз ще поставя и линковете в чата, защото съм убеден, че в тази информа са трудни за запомнене. Попълнете обратна връзка, ако имате време и желание за днешното събитие. Също така, за да може нашата група да се развива, ние очакваме активно заявяване на желанията от ваша страна, а защо не и участие като презентатори. Така че имаме втора форма, която евентуално може да дадете идеи за презентации, вие да ги водите или пък ваш колега, или просто да дадете идея за презентации и съответно ние да намерим човек, който да ги изводи. Така че вашата активна връзка е много важна, за да може събитията да бъдат интересни, регулярни и всички да се наслаждаваме на това, което се случва. Толкова от мен. Няма да отнемам повече време от същината. Предавам щафетата на Орлин Василев, за да направи плавно въведение в темата за днешната среща. Орлине, ти си на ход.
Благодаря. Надявам всички да ме чувате добре. Аз така скромнах набързо листа с хората, които са включили и виждам няколко чужди имена. Да попитам Карстен, Прифа, English or Bulgarian?
Most probably he joined later. So
yeah. Is there anyone who wants that session to be in English? Please raise your hand or unmute yourself.
Or just drop us yeah, there is no option for them, for the participants to speak, but maybe they can also put us a comment in the chat so that we can continue in English if needed. So guys, please, if there is a need to run in this one in English, just let us know and we will switch completely in English. Both English and Bulgarian are fine for me. This is for Kalin.
Yeah, Kalin, I know you, so that should be fine for you. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, let's continue in English, and that would be maybe easier for you, Mladen, to follow.
Yeah, I'm fine with each. I will not be able to speak Bulgarian, but for sure it's fine for me. So no issues.
Okay, English then. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Orlin, and I'm engineer at VMware currently. What we're going to talk about today, that's overall the agenda that we're going to cover. Let me switch that to full screen. So me and my colleague Mladen, we're going to cover two very similar topics, but I'm going to touch base on the introduction to Kubernetes. And that session aims to, in the end of that session, I hope you can get away, if you're not aware of Kubernetes, basic understanding of what Kubernetes is and the basic concepts. Architecture, actually, do you really need Kubernetes in general, and some tooling. So that slide is about me. It's not like an advertise about me, but that's like overall what I do. I'm senior engineer, as I said, in VMware for the next 2 weeks. Then I'm going to take another role, which is going to be very exciting for me. I'm also CNCF ambassador. In other words, me and my colleagues, from the next topic, which is the CNCF Meetup Bulgaria, we managed to get one of us to be the local for the region ambassador from CNCF, and for some reason that was me. So we run the local community meetups. We have more than 1,000 members. I can see many of those names in the current panelists, including Spasa Tanasov, who is one of the team members that we organized. The other person is called Vladimir Dimov. So as Dimitar said, come and join us. We do quite often meetups. I have 2 kids, and I'm also passionate barbecue master. And yeah, that's not an ad, but yeah. Okay. So before that, I want to do a quick check on the base. Who knows what Kubernetes is and how often you use it, and what level? For example, do you use it like on daily basis, or you want to test it? So I can know what the audience is.
As I see Dimitar changed the option, so now attendees also can unmute them.
Oh, that's great. So that would be more interactive.
If someone want to comment on this one or provide his view and answer on a link question, please be free to do that.
So guys, do you use Kubernetes on daily basis? Okay, Edward was the first one to answer. I know about it. Okay. Basic level of understanding, good. 2, 3 more answers. Only my home lab. Never use it in my home lab.
Oh, we say we have also DK. Congratulations, Colin.
You didn't stop
Nice.
yourself to show off, right? Good stuff.
Nice.
Good stuff. Okay. Spas, I don't accept that answer from you. We planned. What we planned? We planned meetups for the end of the year, man. Okay, so yeah, I can see people are, yeah, it's a mixed audience. So I think that first session, which aims to be 10 to 20 minutes, I think will be good as a start. And then Mladen will be actually talking about the juices of Kubernetes and Tanzu. And I lost my mouse. Anyway, so what's Kubernetes? Kubernetes, that's what you can see on the screen, is the literal definition from the CNCF people. So it's a portable and extensible open source platform for managing containerized workloads, whatever that means. Means it's a piece of software developed back in the Google Labs, and then open sourced and given to the CNCF Foundation to be governed by the CNCF Foundation. And in its basics is an orchestrator for containers. So that said, it's all about containers everywhere. I'm sorry, that's like pure from our corporate VMware slides about Kubernetes. I didn't stop myself. I didn't manage to stop myself using this one. So I want to touch base of the business and technical needs around Kubernetes, which are, in my view, very relevant. So the first one of this is faster time to market. What that means? It means when let's say you have Kubernetes in your environment, that's cool. It's new. Everyone it's liking it and is very trendy. But faster to market, time to market means your application, whatever that application may be, can be deployed and ready to serve the users faster than pretty much anything else. If you compare that to standard VM, which Mladen will do that reference in his part, to reconfigure some application from the source code to compiling to get it to running on a VM is very time consuming compared to what you can have on some containerized workload, and especially in Kubernetes. Next thing, again, is comparison between VMs and containers, and IT cost optimization could mean different things, but in that particular case, it means the density of the workload that you can get based on the container architecture. It's much more dense than the VMs. And on top of that, if you add the layer of leveraging some kind of public cloud, that can bring very, very much of a cost optimization in terms of infrastructure. Improves scalability and availability. That is actually the essence of Kubernetes, which that comes with the Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is designed in a way that your workloads, if are properly designed to run on Kubernetes and they're like a cloud native aware, that scalability and availability comes out of the box from the Kubernetes itself. So that can bring I'm sorry, I was checking the chat for questions. So that scalability can give you the tooling to scale your application on demand, on runtime. If you have the proper monitoring in place to scale it like to 100 replicas automatically, and it's all that done by Kubernetes. And availability, on the other hand, is similar and connected to this one. because you can stretch your clusters among different cloud providers to different regions, and that can increase your availability of your application drastically compared to have VMs or bare metal on few data centers and hard to migrate the workload. The next two, multi-cloud and effective migration to the cloud, for me are going together, because Kubernetes is designed in a way to run in the cloud, right? You can run it on bare metal, you can run it on-prem, no issues with that. But the whole idea to run Kubernetes and to be dynamic and to go together with the cloud is that thing that you can leverage all the dynamics of the cloud. So if you need a new worker, you can spin it up whenever it's needed, and if you don't need it, you can leverage down and you can destroy that worker. So that also bring cost optimization, and then that's much more cloud oriented or cloud native. And also that thing to embrace DevOps and GitOps, it's obviously it's a new thing on the block for the last couple of years. GitOps and DevOps are more like a mindset, as we all know, but Kubernetes brings that closer to the team, to the technology of Kubernetes brings that, and allows the DevOps and GitOps ideas to be implemented more easily in terms of deployment and continuous delivery. And the GitOps, on the other hand, with all the components which are surrounding Kubernetes, can bring that that mindset again of not to be like logging in and checking and configuring something manually, but you check your code, which are your changes on your infrastructure or your application configuration, and your Kubernetes can bring that and apply it right away. So it's not out of the box, but Kubernetes and the whole ecosystem around Kubernetes can give you that. So not to waste too much time on this one, but some basic concepts. So on the next part, when Mladen explains the Tanzu, we should know what we're talking about. So those are pretty much very basic concepts of for Kubernetes. Container, I think that should be not only Kubernetes explained, but it's a sealed application image, which if you haven't played with Docker until now, it's a good starting point, but you can imagine it as a ISO file or some archive which holds all your application libraries or your configuration, everything shipped in one single file. You just export it and run it on some Docker enabled, for example, if we run the Docker engine. So pod is the smallest entity of work on Kubernetes. So pod in our case for Kubernetes, it's in combination between one or more containers which are running simultaneously, and they share the same namespaces on the Linux kernel. So that means they share the same networking, they share the same file system namespace. So you can take them as one unit of work. Deployment is the abstraction, or it's a resource also called in Kubernetes, which defines our workload. So with deployments, we can define, for example, how many replicas of specific workload we can have. So that practically is the descriptive definition of our workload. Labels, on the other hand, are something that is very powerful in Kubernetes. And it's, as the slide said, identifying metadata attached to the object. So you put like a tagging on each object and each resource. So you can match them, how they were deployed, who owns them, when they were last touched, and stuff like this. Namespace is a crucial element of Kubernetes. And when we talk about, for example, multi-tenancy, so in any case, we can have like a Kubernetes cluster which is shared between different teams in the same organization, and namespace is one of these abstraction that we have on the Kubernetes cluster, which allows us to separate the workloads between, for example, different teams. So we can have the, or even if we are a small company and we have few Kubernetes clusters, we can have namespaces for different environments like dev, staging, production. Controller is something that it's internal to the Kubernetes engine. It's part of the control plane. So we have many types of controllers which run inside our Kubernetes cluster, but those are, we can accept them as a mechanism to I'm sorry, I'm distracted a bit. To compare what's in the current state and what's the desired state. That's how the controller works, and they can cycle around that, and to make sure that what we want to have in the Kubernetes cluster running is that what actually we have. Service is that's the official definition set of pods that working together, but you can take it as a internal load balancing inside the Kubernetes cluster, so you can have multiple pods from the same service, for example, web server, and the service sits on top of them, so you can ensure they have a single entry point, and then all the traffic is distributed across the different pods. Selector, it's similar to the labels and metadata again, but those are used for specific tasks. If you want to group specific resources under the same action, for example, to delete a pods with specific selector, or if you want to scale up different deployments which are having the same selector. And control plane is the actual brain of Kubernetes. That's the orchestration layer. That's also the kube API interface. So that's all the machinery behind Kubernetes. I'm not sure if I'm running too fast or too slow. If someone is, please stop me if I need to change the speed a bit. That's the that's very, how to say, very abstract architecture of the Kubernetes cluster. On the left side, we have our control plane, which is the brain and the machinery of Kubernetes. On the right side, we have our nodes. So in the past, that was called masters and slaves or workers. Not anymore, with all the inclusion and stuff that going on right now. So we have control plane and nodes. Here we have the description for each and every part of this one, and now go them one by one and describe what they do. So the API server, those pods, because normally when we run Kubernetes, even the Kubernetes internals, they run as a pod on the same cluster. So the kube API server, also called, is the API endpoint with which we communicate with the cluster. So we have the kubectl on our side as a client, and we want to deploy something. So we talk with the kubectl to the kube API server. Then we have the Cloud Controller Manager on this side, and that's a piece of software which allows us to leverage the cloud native capabilities of the infrastructure that we run. For example, if we need a load balancer spin up from the cloud provider, or if we need some storage, or if we need, for example, what else? EC2 instances for nodes. That's an optional. So yeah. I'm not going to go into much details. I think Mladen will touch that more on the Tanzu. So then we have the controller manager over here. We talk about it, and that controller manager can be, for example, to check if our replica sets, which are one of the resources that we have, if they have, for example, specific workload, if it's having 3 replica, which are defined, but if it has 2, then that controller will start cycling around this one and try to make the desired state to match the current state. So it will try to spin up a new replica from the same pod. Then we have the kubelet. That's a component which runs on the nodes. So that's the part that runs on the node, which communicates with the control plane, and control plane talk to the kubelet, and kubelet controls all the local resources on that specific node. So if the scheduler, which is down there, which function is to match a workload, so pod to node, and that match is done. For example, we want to run some pods on node 1. Then the scheduler talks to the kubelet, and kubelet will spin up that pod on that node. That's very simplified, of course. And we have the kube proxy, which is doing all the networking magic from Kubernetes, because end of the day, we serve in Kubernetes, we run and we serve some networking services, which primarily are HTTP or HTTPS, whatever. But that kubelet, that kube proxy runs on every node, and combined with the networking plugin, for example, Calico, we can access our services or our pods on each and every node. And that funny picture GIF on the left side is illustration of our scheduler. If you want to kill a pod, but you do not delete the pod, that's what happens. It's spinning constantly. That's the one of with the controller manager. So do you really need Kubernetes in your environment? It's something that in my experience is very not discussed on such meetings as this one. There are huge articles about this one, and I'm gonna allow myself to quote one of the big minds in the Kubernetes world. It's a advocate at Google, Kelsey Hightower, and he says in one podcast that if you have perfectly fine working environment and you have set it up everything, and you have all the configuration management that you need in place to spin up virtual machines and configure them, and everything works flawlessly and everything is fine and roses and everything, why you should embrace Kubernetes? It's not, if it's just because you want to be trendy, it's gonna be huge effort for your organization to implement that new piece of infrastructure, because Kubernetes practically replaces a huge portion of your infrastructure with something new. So you have to learn how to manage it. You have to educate your staff how to deploy it, how to manage it, how to patch it, all the lifecycle stuff around Kubernetes, which is enormous stuff. So if it's just for being trendy, maybe you're on the wrong path. If you have identified your need, business and technical need in the first slide, then go for it. And I want to share some tooling, because Kubernetes, as many of the people are not aware, is not just magical piece of software that solves all the problems on the IT. It's just one thing, and then you need 100 other things to make it actually do the work for you. For example, if you take the vanilla Kubernetes that I'm talking about, and you deploy it in any cloud or even on some VMs on your on-prem cluster, you need to set some monitoring and observability by yourself. So I don't want to go into much details in each and every of this, but you need, for example, something like Prometheus to collect your metrics from your services, and then you need Grafana to visualize them, and maybe you need some kind of alert manager to give you alerts based on these metrics that something is wrong with your service. Security and compliance, you need to sign your images, so when you run something on your cluster, you're sure what exactly you're running, so that notary comes in place. Or if you want to know that which team runs whatever they want, you need some way to verify everything then that comes to the kube API. So you need some sort of mechanism, and that's open policy agent. Portieris is a project from IBM which works together with Notary, which verifies the signature of your images. Falco is it's a project that can do like security audits of your cluster. Incredibly or not, the networking is integrated in Kubernetes, but how you actually accessing your services is not out of the box. So you have to deploy something on top of this, and then Kubernetes, and that's called ingress controllers. So you have plenty of choices, and Nginx or Contour or HA proxy is one of this. Then if you want to debug your application and how your components of your microservice architecture works, one way is to implement service mesh, so you can have the map of all your traffic inside the Kubernetes cluster, and that comes on top of this one. And Istio and Linkerd are two perfect examples of this one. Image management, for me, it's related to the security and compliance. Is where exactly your images are coming from. Are they from Docker.io? Are they from Quay? Are they from EKS? Or some other hosted or not registry? So that's on top again. And then one crucial one is the deployment mechanism. So are you going to use Amazon Kubernetes or Google Cloud or something that you're going to deploy with kops or kubespray or kubeadm? And that brings also the day two operations. So the lifecycle of the cluster, that means patching of the underlying operating system, patching of the cluster itself. It's a huge amount of other stuff that comes right after installing Kubernetes that you should take into account. And that's maybe Tanzu, and that's maybe not the slightless and the flawless transition, but all that on that last slide is actually represented in VMware Tanzu, and Mladen will take over from me now and talk about this one.
Okay. Thanks, Orlin. Any questions maybe from our attendees so far? Okay, if not, let me then share my screen so I can run to some of my slides also. Okay, so hi again from my side also, and thanks for attending this VMUG session itself. I really enjoyed. I really hope that you enjoyed the previous part of our session when Orlin provided details about Kubernetes itself in general. And I will let's say describe more how in VMware we are sorting out, and what kind of solution are we providing in terms of different solutions which can be utilized and used to manage the Kubernetes itself and to manage this kind of workload, and especially to simplify the management of all of those. Like you previously see, there is really a huge bunch of different solutions which you can utilize to run Kubernetes environment and to operate those, to manage all those containers which you might have in your environment. And from that side, it can be really complex, and we see that customers are turning into different projects, and in some cases they are stuck in some part or something like that, not able to continue because there is so many different things, so many tools which can be utilized, and for sure, like any other open source solutions, it's question of what kind of support you can get. This is where VMware stepped in with the Tanzu itself. Sorry, this is post-COVID coughing, so I apologize in advance. So this is where VMware stepped in with the Tanzu portfolio itself. And speaking about the portfolio itself, so first question is, what is VMware Tanzu? So Tanzu is, it's not a single product or something like that. So it's more like group of all different products which we are using to provide the customer an option, not only to operate containers and Kubernetes clusters, but also to maintain those, to monitor those, and also to provide complete environment for the developers teams so that they can also develop all the, let's say, develop and utilize, create the code itself. And from the other side, then we have a DevSecOps teams, not forget the security, which is becoming more and more important, especially in enterprise environment. So to provide also to the DevSecOps teams also valid tools and solution to be able to manage this kind of environment, and of course to provide the visibility if we are speaking about some regular environment which we are seeing at our customers, where there is already vSphere environment running with virtual machines. So we are also providing the tools for the VMware admins that from the vCenter they can also track and monitor not only the VMs, which they are currently do, but also to see details about Kubernetes environment, which is running on top of those vSphere itself. So from this side, as I mentioned, it's a group of all the different tools which are used for all those specific, let's say, tasks in let's say, in order to build complete cloud native application itself. And I must say also, previously it was only also discussed about the need for the Kubernetes itself. So if you are already running your environment where everything is smoothly, it's a question, do you need it? But what we are seeing for our customers, what is happening also is that majority of developer companies going toward containers. So they are going now into develop the application based on the containers itself. And now we are seeing the situation that customers are purchasing new application, which will be delivered in a containers. And typically maybe the developer or the company which is providing this service, this application, will provide some amount of time of dealing with that one, maintaining this environment, etc. And then in some moment of time, they will just say, okay, you purchase our solution, now it's on you to take care of that one. And this is also an additional push for customers to go toward the containers in itself and to provide a valid environment where they will be able to manage this kind of application itself and to provide valid tools to manage those. So speaking about the Tanzu itself, this is, let's say, how the typically life cycle of some application will look like. So we have a developer teams which are working on writing the code itself. So they are preparing that one. Then everything came to the DevSecOps teams where they should package this code as some kind of containers. They should connect all those different containers in order to have this application running with all those different pieces and components which are available in those containers itself. Then, sorry, they will run those data services. They will connect the code to those data services and then run and execute those containers in some of the environment, in on-premise data center, in some public cloud, or etc. And then at the end, they need to be able to manage all those different Kubernetes clusters itself, which, as you mentioned previously, can be on-premise, can be in public cloud, something like that. So it's really mixed environment where you really need to have valid tools to be able to monitor all of those. From the other side, when you have already your application up and running with all those containers, what is always happening? Someone is saying, okay, my application is down. I need to see what's going on. You need to be able to run some kind of root cause analysis to see what's wrong with the application itself, and then to provide, let's say, to bring up an application again itself. So this is all the different components in the life of, let's say, of the modern application, which you need to address with some tools. We said there is an option for each of those to utilize all those different tools, like Orlin already mentioned. So there is really a huge bunch of those. I didn't want to put here a slide which will provide all the details about, for example, what are the projects inside of CNCF which are worked and utilized for each of those different options which we see here. So how we address those with Tanzu itself. So writing the code itself, we are providing Spring for Java-based application. There is also Stilto for .NET application. So we can provide the environment and with the engine which will developer teams use to write the code, to prepare the code itself. Then you need to package the container, to package the code as a container itself. This is where we are utilizing our Tanzu build service itself, and it's highly connected to the, this is where we are utilizing Tanzu build service itself. So where we will connect the container itself, the code which is written by the developer, and attach to that one all different dependencies which are required for that container to run. Some runtime environment, some maybe databases which is needed for that one or similar. So we have everything those already pre-packaged, pre-built with the Tanzu build service itself. Then as we are able now to spread the containers running in different environments and sites, this is where we are utilizing Tanzu service mesh itself, which is utilizing NSX itself in order to be able to connect all those different, let's say, environments and the containers which are running in order to have a properly, let's say, running application itself from that side. Running environment and running data service for the containers, we have Tanzu application catalog itself, where we can, let's say, pre-build and pre-package all those different applications which are now can be used in the environment itself. So this is where we utilize also Harbor as our image repository itself. And Harbor is something which is developed by the VMware. It's an open source solution itself, but mainly contributor for that one is VMware itself. And we are building in the Harbor all different tools in order to secure that the images which are used from the Harbor itself are secured. We are checking the vulnerabilities of that one so that every image which is stored in Harbor is secure from that side so that you can easily take that one and run in your environment itself. There is also the connection to the different data services which are required. Also, it's developed and provided with the Tanzu application catalog itself. Then, as we have now ready, let's say, the container, the application itself, now is the time to run this environment, to run this application itself. As we mentioned, it can be done with the running of the containers on top of the vSphere. So there is a Tanzu Kubernetes grid on vSphere, or you can utilize vSphere with Tanzu, depending on the edition of the vSphere which you are using. So it's 6.7 or vSphere 7, or you can run your containers in some public cloud environment and utilize the public cloud services itself. In order to manage this kind of environment where you are running containers on all different, let's say, environments, we are using Tanzu Mission Control, which is providing, let's say, unified view of all those different containers which are running in your environment. So from there, you can manage all those different environments where you want to run your containers itself. We mentioned also that since we have application which is running now on containers, we need to be able to check what's going on with the application itself. And for this purpose of the root cause analysis and observability itself, we use Tanzu observability provided by Wavefront. So with this service itself, we are providing an option to deeply inspect and monitor all the points and the stuff inside of the application itself and all those containers which are utilized with that one, in order so that whatever whatever happening is in the environment itself, we can monitor that one and we can provide the details and a very detailed insight about the containers which are running in the environment itself. So this is how we are, let's say, touching all those different components if we speak about the life cycle and the life of single application in the production itself, what are the points which we need to address, and each of those we are addressing with the Tanzu itself. Today I'm going to speak more about, let's say, the part of Tanzu offering in regards to the VMware and vSphere environment itself. So this is what we announced already 1 year ago with the release of vSphere 7. We introduced vSphere with Tanzu. Initially, it was called the vSphere with Kubernetes add-on itself. So it provides an option for the customers which are using already vSphere, and there is for sure a lot of customers running vSphere in their environments, which is providing an option now to deploy and run Kubernetes clusters on top of the existing environment itself. So from this side, no matter it's vSphere 6.7 or vSphere 7, there is an option to deploy and run Kubernetes cluster inside of this environment itself. It's a small difference in between those two, but in general, this is what we are enabling our customers now with, and there is, I will speak about a little bit later about the additions. there is a so-called Tanzu Basic add-on license, which will enable customer to run Tanzu cluster on top of the vSphere itself. So what we did itself, we let's say push all the, well, you know, vSphere is some edition of the version of the Linux itself. So what we did is that we push different additional services which are required to run Kubernetes clusters inside of the vSphere itself. There is, you know, for all those which are experienced with the vSphere, you know, there is a service inside of vSphere, inside of the ESX server, which is called hostd. So this service is managing all regarding the VM virtual machines itself. Besides hostd, we added something called Spherelet. This Spherelet is a service which is now responsible to manage all the components inside of the vSphere which are related to the containers and Kubernetes itself. So now we have this additional service which we are building inside of the vSphere itself, and enabling the users to create those namespaces which Orlin mentioned already as a, let's say, main building block for the container for the Kubernetes cluster, to be directly created on top of the vSphere and then run all those services inside of this namespace itself. From this side, we provide a tool for the IT operators, well, VMware admins, to be able through vCenter to log into the environment, to see all the namespaces, create those namespaces, provide what the level of resources is required for those namespaces. For example, for VMware admins, it's like creating any additional resource pool itself. So it's similar to that one. And from the other side, we provide also, when we have the namespaces and everything ready, and we can provide the access to the developer teams to access this namespace itself, and then run and utilize the native tools in order to build any kind of Kubernetes cluster on top of the namespace itself, which is used. All other VMware vSphere features and functionalities related to the availability, networking, storage services, etc., are still available with the utilization of the vSphere with the Tanzu itself. So we are still keeping all those stuff there. There is from time to time we are receiving the questions why to run Kubernetes on top of or containers on top of the vSphere itself. There are some nice blog posts regarding this one. So, but there, let's say, some of the most important thing is that you are providing, let's say, the unified infrastructure, underlying infrastructure for all different kind of services in your environment. Because still on the same vSphere, you're still running all those native traditional virtual machines, traditional application database, etc. And still in the same environment, you will be able to run containers and Kubernetes clusters itself. They're all, as I mentioned, all vSphere functionalities are also available for the Kubernetes itself. So you can build high available environment itself, utilize all those resources itself. And of course, last but not least, probably, is that still we are providing with the running containers on top of the vSphere, we can provide better performance than running containers on top of the bare metal itself. Simply because inside of the ESX, the main engine for everything is our scheduler, which is running there. And for those 20 years of the development, we really tuned this thing to work as fast as possible for those environments. So it can beat containers running on bare metal in all different cases. There is nice blog post on the performance regarding this one on our performance blog. So if you're interested, you can check that there also. So as I mentioned, on top of, we have ESX nodes where we have this Spherelet service itself, which I mentioned. There is a vCenter server itself, which is providing an option for the vSphere admins to control the environment itself. So we are creating so-called supervisor cluster, which is now the set of additional services running on ESXi nodes, and which is used then to create all those additional components and those vSphere pods and namespaces for running of the Kubernetes cluster itself in this kind of environment. So this is, let's say, that how simply we can add those new services on top of the existing ESXi server itself and utilize it for not only to run virtual machines itself, but also to run Kubernetes clusters there also. For the shared storage, so we can use the let's say vSAN, which is available for sure from the VMware, or you can use some other data store, standard data store, which can be provided and utilized by the ES6 node itself. For the purpose of the networking itself, if you want to utilize those so-called vSphere pods, so this, let's say, small, let's say, well, it's vSphere pod is some kind of container in the ES6 in the ES6 server itself. If you want to use this so-called vSphere pod service, you need to utilize the NSX. You need to have NSX in your environment. If you want to run just simple namespaces, create namespaces and run those beside the virtual machines, you can use it also with the simple distributed virtual switch. So in order to run Kubernetes cluster on top of the vSphere, you don't need nothing else but the vSphere Enterprise Plus. Okay, plus Tanzu add-on itself. We'll speak about that later. But there is no need to have NSX vSAN or something like that. So the only requirement is to have vSphere Enterprise Plus from that perspective itself. So how does it look and deploying this into existing environment infrastructure itself? So you have existing ES6 nodes. There is a distributed switch for which one we need to have we need to define 3 additional port groups itself. So one is for management, for front-end connectivity itself, and for workload group. So this is simply how we can start with the deployment of the Tanzu on top of the vSphere itself. First component which is going to be deployed is HA proxy. And this is what we done until vSphere 7 update 2. So with the latest release of vSphere 7 update 2, instead of HA proxy, we added an option to utilize NSX advanced load balancing. For those who are not aware, so already 2 years ago, we acquired a company called Avi Networks, which were creating global load balancer, but software-based load balancer. And now we included those services inside of the NSX itself. And this is now something which is available from the update 2 instead of HA proxy itself, which is open source itself. After we deploy HA proxy, for example, we will create Kubernetes control plane itself, which consists of 3 virtual appliances itself, and which will be connected to those port groups which we created in the environment itself. And as we have this control plane up and running itself, all the services related to the Tanzu itself, so to the Tanzu Kubernetes grid is now available, and we can start to deploy namespaces and Tanzu Kubernetes cluster on top of this environment itself. So this is how, for those, I saw that already there are some people who have home labs itself. If you didn't try this in your home labs, for sure you are free to do that. I will have additional comment on this one a little bit later. And for those who are, let's say, running vSphere in your environment, for sure, this is the way how you can also start to play with the Kubernetes itself. We can always provide some evaluation license for this one, or you can go and simply purchase the Tanzu, well, even Tanzu Basic Edition itself, which is not so much costly license itself. How does it look in the environment itself? So you can see here that besides, so this is from the vCenter view, we have some ES6 node there, and there is a namespaces which we are creating. So you can see even the logo, the icon of this one is similar to the resource pool itself, and then inside of those we are creating those different namespaces there. We can see these supervisor cluster virtual machines, and then all those Kubernetes clusters running in the environment itself. For sure, as I mentioned, vSphere admin have the access right. So this is from the previous slide. So for sure, the vSphere admin have the rights to create those namespaces, and then you can check always the details. So you can check, you can provide also details not only about the resources, about what amount of CPU, memory this resource pool namespace can utilize. You can share and define who can view this one, who can edit. So who are the users, developers, for example, who has the access to who has the rights to access this environment and perform some additional, let's say, configuration on top of that one and utilize that one. So with complete Tanzu portfolio itself, so we are covering all those, let's say, needs from the developer teams and from the operational team itself. So in order to provide this unified environment for the user to operate and manage containers and the Kubernetes clusters there, but also the legacy virtual machines and the application itself. So with all those different points which are available there. There are currently several Tanzu editions, how this Tanzu is available. So simple one are Tanzu Basic and Standard, which are, let's say, just to enable running Tanzu inside of vSphere or maybe in utilizing public cloud. Tanzu Advanced will provide additional functionalities related to the developers and DevOps teams itself. Tanzu Enterprise is something which is going to be announced during this year, and it will, let's say, have a complete portfolio of additional tooling for the developers itself, mostly related to the Pivotal Labs. So the solutions which we are building in from the Pivotal acquisition itself. If you remember previous slide about all the components which we had in Tanzu, so Tanzu Basic is only to provide this running environment for the Kubernetes cluster on top of the vSphere itself. So this is what you're getting simply with Tanzu Basic itself. Tanzu Standard, as I mentioned, is adding an option to run Kubernetes cluster inside of the public cloud also, and this is why we are adding Tanzu Mission Control on top of that one, so that you can monitor all those different clusters which you can potentially have in your environment. And of course, at the end, Tanzu Advanced is including all of those different solutions in the license itself. So complete all the stuff related to the developers also, but also for the DevSecOps teams itself. For the end, just a few additional comments. So there is a nice, really useful Flinks available on the Flinks VMware Flinks page. So it's a demo appliance for TKG, Tanzu Kubernetes Grid itself, which you can utilize to deploy and to play with Tanzu clusters on the vSphere environment, or to deploy it in a public cloud environment. So you can go and try that one also. There is several labs available on Hands-on Lab portal where you can go also and try the play with the Tanzu itself. So there are a couple of labs which are available there. Also, for the people who are interested to learn more about the containers itself, there is a Kube Academy available from the VMware itself. So it is also a free tool where you can always go access to that one. There were several courses regarding the containers itself and this cloud native approach itself. So you can go and listen. It is around 20 different courses available currently on the Kube Academy itself. And of course, as I mentioned, it's free of charge. Like Hands-on Lab is free to use, and this demo appliance kit is also free to use. So that's all also from my side. If there are any additional questions which can pop up later on, if you're interested to see something in the POC, in the demo or something like that, just drop me an email or something like that, and I will be more than happy to help you and assist with all the different stuff. So I'll stop the sharing. Any questions if we have any?
Dimitri, do we have time for questions?
Yes, we do, if there are any.
Yeah, if there are, just drop a question or chat or just unmute yourself and ask whatever came to your mind. Now, okay. So as I mentioned, please, guys, if anyone is interested, let's say, as I mentioned, to run, to try this, to test this, if you want to see some kind of demo environment or something like that, just please let us know. And I'm really happy that also, as we have a lot of people working on containers and Kubernetes stuff in our developer team in Bulgaria itself. So for sure, we can always, like we have Orlin today with us, for sure, for any, let's say, some specific question or something like that, we can address also and reach out to the developer team also. As we are moving, as VMware is also moving towards the containers for the development of our own solution itself.
Yeah, feel free to reach locally on meetups or LinkedIn or whatever you like to me as well. And okay, last chance for questions. Is there anyone awake? I don't know.
Yes, I am.
Hey, Colin.
Then anyhow, I feel this session is also recorded, so it will be available also to be listened again. So
Yeah, and then Colin, do you have question or just saying hi?
I don't have a particular question. Maybe it would have been better while introducing the networking part to mention the CNI, the Container Network Interface plugins, and where is the Kubernetes scope, let's say, and where is the container development scope, because that was something that was really a brain fuck for me while I was introducing myself to Kubernetes.
Yeah, as I said, Kubernetes, when you install Kubernetes, you have to choose one of the CNIs available out there. So my personal choice, weapon of choice is Calico. I've been using Weave for a long time. I'm saying because I'm part of the VMware team, internal team, which we deploy Kubernetes for our internal usage. So that's like an internal platform. So we had Weave for a while and we are struggling with it. And now we are migrating to Calico. Why we're not migrating to NSX is a great question, which nobody asked, but I'm going to answer, because my team in general tend to stay open source as possible. But Mladen can talk about NSX as a CNI.
Yeah, but can I ask you, are you also, Orlin, are you testing also and maybe trying on Antria?
Antria? No.
Yeah, no.
No. Is that from Avi or?
No, it's our CNI solution, which is like Calico, but it's open source, but then with more functionalities and features. And this is something which we are providing. So when you go with Tanzu Basic or Tanzu Standard, you can choose, do you want to use Calico as a networking inside of the clusters itself, or you can utilize Antria itself. And Antria is our open source solution, which is developed by VMware team itself also.
Okay.
So maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, you never know. Antria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was always that with the NSX it's more focused to provide this, let's say, connectivity between the pods itself and not going directly into the container networking itself, but to provide an option then when you have those Kubernetes cluster itself, so connectivity between all of those. But what is more important, and this is what we see in general in what is happening with the customers, that still they will have some Kubernetes clusters and some cloud native application utilizing containers, which is still in the background using some legacy database or something like that. And you need still to provide the connectivity towards that one. And this is where NSX step in. While for the container itself, there is Calico, like you mentioned, or Antria, which we introduced with, well, it came with the vSphere 7 update 1, I believe already. It's available. It's already available there.
Okay, good stuff. I learned something new today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, guys. That was not exactly a question. It was more or less to produce discussion that has just happened. So
yeah,
that was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And Peter, you say so much new information. Does that mean too much information or good amount of information? And I'm just trying to adjust the speed and the content. Peter Gevezov. Maybe he dropped. No, he didn't.
Too much new information. Yeah, it's reality with the Kubernetes and containers. Yeah, but this is why we have, for example, Kube Academy, which is great resource then to go, let's say, step by step and go into the containers world and the cloud native application itself. It's a great resource for that one. So for sure, I can recommend that one to go and to check the sessions which are available there for sure. Okay.
Okay.
So I believe that, yeah, okay. Dimitar posted the link. Thanks.
Yeah, I got this comment on a private chat with one of the attendees that our discussion with Mladen is like the two hands in VMware. You know that expression. Nobody knows what the other people do. We're in two different worlds in VMware right now, so
Exactly.
it's great that we managed to meet and exchange that information. It's not that it's that chaotic at VMware. Don't get us wrong. It just
That's true. But like you mentioned, we are completely different teams, and for sure each one is let's say focus on the different stuff itself. So for sure that we are let's say this is not in common, and like still we are let's say huge company from that side. So even only in Bulgaria there is over 1,000 people working on a different stuff itself. So it's really from that side it's a huge environment with all different teams itself. So nothing uncommon for this size of company itself. Okay, I believe that we are cool. Dimitar, any final words from your side?
No, except to say thank you to you both and to, of course, our guests. And to state that in the coming days, the recording of this session will be available. I'll manage somehow to publish where it is uploaded. And I hope to hear some feedback from our attendees, what they would like to hear next time, perhaps another session for Tanzu or something else.
Great.
So if there aren't any other questions, we can say bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. And if anyone needs any advice or help with Kubernetes, feel free to reach us. I'll try to help anyone in my time, any place and time. So go for it.
Same here, and hopefully, I really hope that the situation will become normal in near future, so that the next VMUG can be in person and not over online.
and
that one.
And I owe you a beer for this helping you out with the chat. So yeah.
Oh, great. You're welcome, Orlin. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.